The CWD Symposium presents The Bond Between Science and Disability, Forging New Capabilities for Inclusion, which was featured at the 256th ACS National Meeting in New Orleans. We are honored to have Sharon Rozovsky give a PowerPoint presentation on increasing participation of students with disabilities in STEM.
So as I mentioned, what I want to talk to you today is about a work at the University of Delaware about increasing the participation of students with disabilities in STEM professions. And so this audience needs no introduction to the fact that in the last decade we've made tremendous progress in increasing participation of underrepresented groups in science. One group that is still lagging behind is a group of students with disabilities. About 6% of the US population between the ages of 18 and 34 is estimated to have a disability, and yet only about 2% of students graduating with a PhD in STEM identify as having a disability. And that number has been stagnant. There has been very little growth in the numbers of students graduating with disability. And there's many complicated reasons for that, but the two that I highlight as the most important are the fact that students with disabilities tend to go to local colleges so that they can get support, often two-year colleges, and because of that they do not have accessibility to research opportunities which are actually key for students to stay in STEM professions. The other aspect is the fact that accommodations for students with disabilities in the laboratory are perceived as challenging, as expensive, and there's not as much dissemination of the fact that we have such advances in technology and knowledge of accommodating students. It doesn't actually trickle to the level of offering those research opportunities. And so there's clearly a great need in developing programs and strategies to increase participation of students with disabilities in STEM leadership professions, both in academic and in industry. Now, this is a reason that my colleague, Carl Burksh, and myself have developed a unique program at the University of Delaware. This is an undergraduate research experience that targets specifically and exclusively only students with disabilities, and that includes physical, learning, psychological, and neurobiological disabilities. It's funded by the NSF, by the National Science Foundation, and it accommodates between 8 to 10 students each summer for gaining research experience, and again, exclusively students with disabilities. So why an REU? An REU is primarily because most research show that early exposure to science and participation in research experience is some of the key components of maintaining students in STEM and progressing for advanced degrees. Our REU, like conventional REUs, offers extensive research experience. We have emphasis on science presentations. We have the ability to present your research at national conferences such as the ACS. But we also have features that are unique to the community of students with disabilities. That is, we discuss and we work exclusively on the challenges that they meet. We develop a network and a support group where they see one another's success stories. And we talk about the challenges that they face in terms of graduate applications and other components that are specific for obtaining a leadership position in academics and in industry. So how do we recruit those students into our program? To start with, this is already an interesting question, how to reach that population. And we rely extensively on our network, on the network developed by Dr. Burksh and myself. We rely on the network of the ACS committee for for chemists with disabilities. We go to recruitment fairs, including that of the ACS. We distribute leaflets that we mail to local schools, particularly undergraduate institutions. We have extensive outreach on the social media. But the one approach that proved to be the most successful is that of actually direct emailing all ACS accredited institutions. We have a mass list of over 2,000 people. And the reason that this approach has been the one that's found to be the most successful is that the vast majority of our students don't find about the program on their own. It's one of the college professors who says, oh, I have accommodated that student in this laboratory. It sounds like a great opportunity, and bring them to their attention. And so the majority of the students in the group come from the faculty teaching faculty, the faculty professors who say, I heard about this research opportunity, would you be interested in following up? And to date, we've already, we really increased the number of applications that we got to about 30, and many of them are really highly competitive. So once we have the applications at hand, there's still the fact that many students with disabilities are intimidated by the program and the challenges faced with that. And what we try to do in the application process is reduce the barriers, the intimidation barrier, as far as we can. We don't require them to provide documentation for the disabilities. We rely on them just telling us what their disability, how would they like to be accommodated. We make the process as straightforward as possible. And we also, and that's key, provide as much information on our website and to the students about the actual details of the program. Many students with anxiety or the neurobiological spectrum are concerned about the unknown, and such as that. And so preparation is very important, actually, that knowing, like reducing the unknown is key to actually getting them to receive the application. We're also very proactive in reaching out for them and encouraging them to complete their application and being friendly. So clearly we have by now extensive experience in accommodation in our program, but there's always something new. There isn't a year where we don't encounter a student, an individual that have accommodations that we have not experienced. Epilepsy, migraines, fatigue, every year, and every student have its own needs and in order to be successful. And so we reach out often to our network, and we reach out for the ACS committee for chemists with disabilities to hear if anyone has encountered it before, what strategies did they do they know students in similar situations, and we tailor new accommodations specifically for that. We are in communication with the student, we are in communication with the environmental health and safety, and all of that ensures that we can really develop something that is specifically suited for that case. I want to give you one example, and that of a service dog in the laboratory. Many of you know this is very challenging because you really have to make sure that the dog is not interfering with safety issues in the laboratory. And at the same time, you have to protect the dog itself from chemical exposures. And so many universities are actually concerned about the presence of a service dog in a laboratory. This is a case where a student with an emotional support dog wanted to work with my group, who was experimental. And what we have done is we have literally built a cage for the dog. What we have done is this cage that you see in here is we built it on this little platform where the dog could enter the cage while in the corridor, so it never actually touched the laboratory itself. It could be wheeled in. And that cage also allowed the dog to be rinsed in the safety shower when needed. So in our case, we also had to move equipment to allow the dog to allow space for the cage. And so this accommodation was worked out in several weeks of back and forth with the environmental health and safety and with the student. But what is the common case for many accommodations, this was very important for the student in the initial state of not being familiar with the research group and with the research. But as the summer evolved, she felt more and more comfortable and actually started leaving her service dog in the student office. And that's very common for accommodations. They evolve. What you come up with initially, as the student becomes more comfortable, the nature of the accommodation changes. And so this is just one example of some of the accommodations that we have to come up that were specific for University of Delaware and for a given student. Okay, how do we match the students with a research mentor? Well, we have a network of faculty who agree to be mentors in the program, and we're very careful that these are really committed mentors so that students will have a successful and positive experience. We do disclose a disability to the research mentor so that he or she can evaluate the fit and know whether they can actually provide the right environment for the student. But we do not require the students to disclose to the group members. We leave it to their discretion as they get to know the group members, as they feel more comfortable to choose what and how they wish to disclose. There are some occasions where the nature of the disability has to be disclosed because, for example, epilepsy and other safety concerns. And in cases like that, we encourage the student to provide a written document to the group members. So what special features does our REU have? Well, one of the special features that we have is that really we have a weekly meeting, 2 hours, in which we all get together and we discuss topics that are unique and specific for the community of students with disabilities. We talk about the representation, about their sense of identity as a group. We talk about solo representation, what it is when you're the sole person in a group that is different from you, conforming to the views of the group of you versus identification. We talk a lot about disclosure, personal and professional, how and when to do it for graduate application, when to do it when you're applying for industrial positions. We talk about expectations, how to choose a graduate program that accommodate you as you are. And even the topics that are part of a conventional REU experience, scientific presentation, scientific communication, all of those are coming with a flavor of adjusting specifically for that group and their particular challenges and also special abilities. So what about social activities? Like all REUs, we have many social activities, but for this particular community, social activities could cause anxiety on occasion. We make sure that we let them know of social activities well in advance. Participation is never mandatory, it's always optional. Most of our social activities are geared toward, a chemical or scientific flavor. They get to visit, art conservation behind the scenes at the Winterthur Museum or go to the NIH. But we very much tailor our social activities depending on that specific group we have that year. Some years we felt comfortable about going to Washington and touring the museums, and some other years we felt more comfortable staying local and going to the Independence Hall. And so we really vary those different activities compared to this group. And again, the key issue is to reduce the barrier. They're never mandatory, and they never should be perceived as, it's important to build a group dynamics, a positive group dynamics, supportive group dynamics, but not to place students in a place where that causes them any kind of social stress. Okay, our poster session in the end of the REU is one of the most important part of the program. Like any REU, this really accumulates what you have done. That summer, it gives you a broad view of what you have achieved. It allows you to have kind of a bigger picture, but it also causes significant amount of anxiety for students with disabilities because they don't have as much experience in presentations, because they might have speech impediments, physical disabilities, social anxiety, neurobiological. There's many cases where presentation in the public is even for neurotypical, presentation could be stressful. Think about the situation where you also have to deal with all these additional barriers. So what we do from the very onset is mentor them throughout the preparation. We have many practices with both faculty and graduate mentors. We discuss issues that are specific for the presentation. We really help them get to the point that they feel comfortable standing in that poster session and presenting the work. But from the feedback that we get from the students, they view that as the one and most important really feature of the program. They have a personal feeling of success, of having been able to overcome all those challenges, stand at the poster, summarize the work, really communicate their science. And I think that you could see, this is one of my favorite pictures. This is one of our students that have a speech impediment, and her mentor, my good friend Ed Lyman from physics, she did a computational project that summer, and you could really see this joy of the feeling of accomplishment. And many of our students really comment on that. So what do our students say about their experience within our REU? Well, like any other REU, we get plenty of complaints. The dorms are too dingy, the stipend is too low, the graduate mentor was only interested in their own research. I promise you that we get the whole gamut. But on the features that are specific to this program, that is on the social support, on the accommodations, on the feeling that they were wanted, we get, and it's difficult for you to see it, right, to read it so fast, but we get a lot of positive feedbacks of this feeling that they were surprised for the better of this kind of cohesive social dynamics, of feeling that they belonged, of accomplishing that poster session, and overall the features that are unique to that community are very well perceived by the students. A very important feature of the program is that really we can only accommodate 8 to 10 students per year. Our budget is limited. How do we expand into a broader reach? How do we disseminate the information that we learn in this community, in this REU, into the community at large? And so we have a website in which we essentially summarize all of the different accommodations that we learn and the specifics of that. And so in that website, every time we encounter a new accommodation or we get resources, we get information from someone else, a student wants to share something, we put that all on our webpage. And that webpage is shared with the ACS Committee for Chemists with Disabilities, and that's great, this synergy that brings really the knowledge from all these different groups that specialize in chemists with disabilities. And so when you go to that website, you see that the website contains all sorts of information, very informal information that we gathered through the years, but is by no means extensive. By no means do we have all accommodations. Our goal is not really to be all-encompassing, but for the students to be able to find that website and to say, my specific accommodation is not here, but let me reach out for them. Let me reach out for the ACS CWD, the Committee for Chemists with Disabilities. Let me find out, using their networks, what do other students have experienced, how to accommodate that. And so we see that more as a launching board for a conversation and finding really through our network what would work for that student. What did we learn throughout the years? Well, we learned actually quite a bit. So the first thing, and one of the most important things that we learned, is that accommodations are dynamic. They evolve throughout the program. They evolve as you get familiar with the student and the students get more comfortable discussing what would make them successful. But also that accommodation, most often than not, are not about infrastructure. They're not about the financial investment. They're not about the communication with environmental health and safety. A lot of them are about goodwill. Things like dimming the lights in meetings for someone who on the neurobiological spectrum, things that just have to do with showing that you really are interested in having that student work with you go, I think, miles more than any just physical accommodation. The other thing, which was a surprise for me, is how much the student wanted to disclose. We were concerned initially that this disclosure is completely optional in our group, but an important aspect is building positive group dynamics that people share. We're very concerned about the question of disclosure. How would the students feel about sharing with a group of strangers? And we found that, if anything, they were eager to disclose. They were happy to share. Of all the cohorts that we had to date, only 1 or 2 of the students chose not to disclose. In fact, I would say there's a feeling of relief of being in a room with people that have the same experience and finally just being able to discuss all the small details that maybe you don't talk with your neurotypical friends. And so clearly students were eager to share. And I want to close our talk by thanking all the people. There's many people who contributed to this program. First and outmost, this is our team at the University of Delaware. I want to thank my partner in crime, Dr. Carl Buchsch, and also our admin, Judy DeLoss. The Committee for Chemists with Disabilities has been instrumental in supporting us, in providing for us their knowledge, sharing their knowledge about accommodation, reaching out when we didn't have the information. The group members of the Rozovsky and Buchsch Lab were helpful in both social activities and also in the day-to-day arrangement of this very elaborate REU. Our REU students throughout the year, which were wonderful, we had a lot of success. Many of them have gone to graduate program, are now in Cornell or in our own program, and are very successful in what they're doing. Special thanks goes for the National Science Foundation that sponsored, this is now the 2nd consecutive funding that we have for the program. And special thanks goes to them. I believe we are the only national program right now that broadly address students with disabilities with any type of disability. And I want to leave this talk by telling you that if you in the audience know of a student with disabilities that you think could benefit from this research experience, really we encourage you to let them know about the opportunities in the University of Delaware and applying for our 2019 cohort. And by that, I will thank you for your attention, and I'll take any questions that you may have.
For more information, please contact us at cwd@acs.org. Check out these other videos and follow us on Twitter. Our Twitter handle is @ACS_CWD. Also connect with us on Facebook at cwd.acs/. This video is brought to you by the American Chemical Society, the world's largest scientific society.